So there is a story told about a study two Canadian scientists did in 1978. They did an experiment where they took a group of 4 and 5-year-olds and they divided them into two groups. And to one of the groups, they had them watch a commercial for a toy. And the other group, they didn't show any commercials to. And then they got all of the kids, maybe not back together, but they asked each of the kids in both groups the same question. They said, we're going to give you about 15 or 20 minutes and you have the choice of who to play with. In one room, there is a child who has that toy. But we need to tell you something. The child who has that toy is not a nice kid. He's mean. And in the other room, there's a child who doesn't have a toy, but is a very nice child. And they found that the kids who had watched the commercial chose the mean child with the toy. And the kids who had not watched the commercial chose the nice child. And all of that was accomplished with watching two commercials, the same number of ads or commercials that we may see in split seconds on the internet. Today, 18-month-olds can recognize the McDonald's logo, the golden arches, before they know their own surname. Today, the average child who is 36 months old, 3 years old, already knows 100 brand logos. These are what Johann Hari describes in his book, Lost Connections, junk values. The same way that we eat junk food, and it goes into us, but it doesn't satisfy us. It doesn't make us happy. It makes us obese, and it corrodes us and our bodies from the inside. We ingest these values. They don't satisfy us. They don't make us happy, and they corrode our souls. Values that tell us that happiness is something that can be bought, that success equals what we have, or how many supposed friends we have on social media, how many likes we can get, and that what matters most are the grades that we get, or the jobs that we have, or the cars that we drive. In Hari's words, junk food is distorting our bodies, and junk values are distorting our minds. Materialism is KFC for the soul. There's a Hasidic story of Reb Simcha Bunim. He's the same one who tells us that we should keep two notes in our pocket, one that says we are nothing but dust and ashes, and the other one that says we are a little bit less than angels. In this story, there's a child and there's a ruler, a sovereign, a king, or a queen, and they have a fight, and the child goes into exile and lives there for a while until the sovereign feels badly and sends an emissary because he wants to repair the relationship. And the messenger, the emissary of the sovereign, says to the child who's now grown, you can have anything that you want. And the child looks at the emissary and says, all I need or all I want is maybe a coat and a loaf of bread. And on the one hand, it's a very humble thing to ask for, but on the other hand, I think the message of Reb Simcha Bunim's story is that this child has forgotten something essential. They've forgotten that they are a child of royalty. They've forgotten of what they can ask for, forgotten that their lives, that their life is important to the one who created everything. Of course, the child is us. Of course, the sovereign is God. And I know that there's a lot of language in the liturgy about kingship that can be alienating and off-putting, but I want to remind us that ultimately the message of that language is ennobling. I work with bar and bat mitzvah kids, and I stand at this bima, and they're getting ready to lead the prayers. And when we're practicing, we get to the point where the silent Amidah happens. And I'll turn to them and I'll say, do you know what you're supposed to do now? And they sort of look at me like, what do you mean? Because they don't have any words to say there. And I say to them, let me guess something. Okay. I know that there's a bar and bat mitzvah section, and that during the silent Amidah, most of the kids, am I right? Right? Most of the kids during the silent Amidah, what they're doing is either talking to each other or being quiet, but waiting for the adults to finish. And the bar and bat mitzvah kids say, yeah, that sounds about right. And I say to them, I get it. You're 12 years old and that makes sense. But there's something really important as you become a bar or bat mitzvah, which is not just that you say the words and the liturgy of our tradition, but the rabbis say you can't lead the community in prayer unless you say a prayer. And Judaism begins with a ridiculous notion. The ridiculous notion is that we don't need an intermediary, but that every one of us can stand before the one who created everything in the universe, and that our words matter, that our lives matter, not just to us, not just to the people we care about, but in some mysterious and inexplicable way. And everything in our society tells us that can't be true. We are living awash in a world of junk values that tell us every other message. My prayer for each of us is to take that leap, to take the leap that our lives matter to the one who created it all, and to take this as a moment, these high holidays, to return to what matters most, to remind ourselves that we, in being children of the Holy One, those values can never be taken away from us. That a life of goodness is measured not in how rich we are, but in what we give away. It's not measured in how popular we are, but in how kind we are. It's not measured in social media, but in true relationships and in love. Shana Tova.